Forge Media unboxing and overview. This time we have Netgear's R7000 AC 1900 cable and fiber router. I purchased this off of Amazon yesterday and it arrived today. Why did I buy this? Well, I'm getting fiber, BT Infinity FTTC installed tomorrow, and I need a router that is capable of routing up to 80 megabits per second. My current ADSL router can be used because it has a WAN port, but it will max out the connection at 26 or 27 megabits per second, so not ideal when you're paying for 80. So, what does this router have to say for itself, and why did I buy it? Okay, so AC 1900. The way it's derived is from the wireless N 600 megabits per second and the wireless AC 1300 megabits per second. Together that makes your AC 1900 standard. However, in testing, the wireless N 600 meg was simply unachievable on a MacBook or my Windows. Any of my Windows PCs that have wireless cards always ended up getting 450 megabits per second, which is more or less what I expect to see. And the only time you're actually going to be able to achieve the 600 megabits per second is with some of the brand new AC or wireless N 600 megabits per second adapter cards, USB 3.0 cards. But that's not really why I bought the router. The router on Small Net Builder is listed as their top performing router when it comes to its WAN to LAN throughput, which is great. It delivers 931 megabits per second WAN to LAN throughput. However, you're not really going to notice that too much unless you've got Google Fiber or something. You're more going to notice what the dual core processor has to offer. And what I'm hoping that the dual core processor will offer is just more reliability, because that's the main thing that I'm concerned about from a router is its reliability. I don't want to have a router that's crashing on me or dropping my internet connection at all, if possible. Now, of course, this is a router, not a modem, so you're going to need to have a modem, which, if you're getting BT Infinity installed, or another fiber-based product from another ISP, like I'm getting mine from Zen, then they'll install the VDSL actual modem part. There are combined VDSL modem routers, but I chose not to go with one. Now, the dual-core processor is a Broadcom dual-core processor, and it definitely helps to facilitate the 931 megabits WAN to LAN throughput. However, where it's mainly going to shine is hopefully in improved QoS performance, media streaming performance, as well as external storage performance. The router has a USB 3.0 port at the front and a USB 2.0 port at the back. Previous routers that I've tested have always had very lackluster USB performance, barely being able to achieve 10 megabytes per second transfer speeds. In doing research, hopefully this device can achieve 29 to 30 megabits per second over USB 3.0, and of course it's a gigabit router. Along the back of the router, what we see is 4 gigabit Ethernet ports, and of course your WAN port, and included in the box is of course a very large wall wart, it's a British 3 pin, and then of course your Cat5e cable, which you connect your router to your modem with, and of course that's going to plug into your Ethernet port. You also get 3 large antennas, which is pretty nice because the wireless performance so far has been pretty good, actually. I wouldn't say it's the best I've ever seen in terms of range, but speed-wise, it's better than many of the other routers that I've experienced. What is interesting is, even though the wireless 2.4 GHz has better range, and when I was testing it on my MacBook Pro 13-inch 2011, the 2.4 gigahertz N had a range that covered the entire property. That's a three-story house, and on ground floor it only lost about 15% signal strength, but managed to maintain a throughput of 200 megabits per second. However, the 5 gigahertz connected wireless N, I don't have a wireless AC device to test the wireless AC, unfortunately. That had noticeably greater drops the further away you got from the router. Right next to the router, I only actually managed to get 70% signal, and then on the ground floor of our house, we only managed to get 55% signal. However, the 5 gigahertz did connect with a throughput of 325 megabits on the ground floor, so still a better throughput than using the 2.4 gigahertz. This was tested on my MacBook Pro, as I previously said, using iStumbler. I wasn't able to test the AC on the device because I don't have a wireless AC device, but that won't last long. Most new phones these days have wireless AC, so it's a reasonably good purchase for future-proofing your home network. Alright, let's take a better overlook of the actual router. So on the front we have power LED, your internet connection LED, your 2.4 GHz, 5 GHz LED, your two USB. USB 1 is the front, if I believe so, and then the USB 2 is your back USB 2, and then your 1, 2, 3, 4 gigabit Ethernet ports. Useful feature is just a LED indicator for your wireless networks, and it's also a button which you can press to simply turn them off, which is fantastic. So you don't actually have to go into the router's interface. Then we have of course, we have got the WPS button, which makes connecting another device reasonably simple. What's quite nice, and what I was a bit concerned about, considering the fact that it has a dual-core processor, is overheating. I installed the router in a reasonably small environment, so I was a little bit concerned about heat and how well the device would ventilate itself. But I've had the device on for well over 2 or 3 hours, and it doesn't get much more than a bit warm to the touch, as well as having reasonably good ventilation pretty much all along the sides, back and bottom of the device. Alright, so we'll continue inside the router's interface. It's a pretty clean interface, reasonably user-friendly, so see you there. Alright, so we've booted up the Netgear R7000 Nighthawk, and we're now going to double check that we have connected via the wireless. And no, we don't want to do any of that, I don't think. Let's just double check that we can connect. Okay, so I've already changed the password, which is one of the first things you're going to want to do. It would be useful if I could remember what I changed that password to. There we go. So then we'll be greeted by the Netgear Genie. It's just telling us that we've logged in from a different device. It may or may not try and set up the internet. Okay, when you access it, what it's probably going to do is try and automatically establish connection to your modem. In my case, it's obviously just skipping that. So very, very clean, almost a little bit too clean for my liking. First thing I did was go to Advanced, go to, I think it's Administration, a router update. So once you're in the router update, I downloaded the firmware directly from Netgear's website for the router. I don't remember exactly which version it was. It was 1.02 or 1.03 with an older version previously, and just updated that to the latest version. It's possible that you can check for the version. I think you can do an kind of automated download, but as the device wasn't actually connected to the internet, I didn't really have that option. The rest of the settings are reasonably simple. If you go back to basic, you can set up your internet connection reasonably quickly. If you go to internet, it's just going to tell you that you're not plugged into a modem, so you can go into your wireless. I'm not quite sure why it's taking this long to load these pages, because it's not doing that on the wired connection. So yeah, basically just set this up so that you can connect to the wireless, change the wireless names, you can set speed limits. So in the basic area, it's reasonably easy to set up the wireless. Advanced, however, is still where you'll get the most information and the most useful information. So you can see firmware versions, MAC addresses, IP address of the router. It's generally going to be that as your standard IP address for your router. Your wireless settings. You want to set up your broadband. You can go to Setup Wizard, I think it was. That probably explains why these web pages are taking so long. Okay, so microphone's back on, sorry, headphones died there. So you're going to want to configure the connection yourself. And internet setup is here, and then you may or may not require a login. I know that for most of the fiber providers in the UK, it requires you to connect via PPPoE, so it's just going to be your login, username, password, depending on whether it doesn't actually require these necessarily. I know if you're with BT, you won't necessarily have to use a password, but for others you do. And then you're just going to use your GET automatically from ISP, unless maybe you have a static IP. Very clean interface, and it generally doesn't take this long to load. It's just this USB dongle, which seems to be giving me a little bit of problems. But yeah, that's the Netgear Nighthawk R7000. I hope you enjoyed.